this takes us over to combat. Chat helped me do a really good segue.
Right.
So this is from original Garnier. I don't know how to say this. But this is the real problem with combat I haven't seen discussed yet. And this is from Reddit. And the TLDR of it is that they feel like the conversation between combat styles, tab versus action, creates some valid points, but there's a massive, more important underlying issue that isn't being discussed, which is the combat thing. And I kind of like, this is here for you to like read through later, all of the rest of that. But it's really highly voted in terms of the Reddit. It's highly voted. And I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it. Does the combat pacing from what you saw or what you see here in the video, does that seem slow? Does that seem fast? Does it seem normal to you? Like, what are your thoughts?
That's a good question. I think that it's obviously pretty obvious that, you know, this showcase, at least they wanted to showcase what was the whole stealing the caravan and supplying it themselves. But in terms of like the timing, if you had just one-on-ones, which they're not balancing it around, I think those would last longer than an actual group fight. It seems that as long as you have 2-3 people on one person, they almost can get deleted within a few seconds. It's tough, you know, because it's obviously like we're not in a balancing phase right now. So I think
right
in terms of tanks, yes, they should last a little bit longer, and some of the other tank / characters, melee. But yeah, if you're like a ranger or you're a mage and you can deal out a lot of damage, you should die really quickly. But yeah, if you're one of the more tankier characters, you should be able to withstand at least a few people hitting you before you get smacked down.
Yeah, or like cleric from being able to self-heal.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Clerics,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, clerics should be able to basically heal just about anyone, unless if they're popping cooldowns. If it's just a 1v1, now 2 obviously more difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, I think as you said, there's still plenty of time for balancing and whatnot, and them to dial into that time to kill. But I've definitely been a fan of more impactful and slower button mashing combat. Just because to me it feels better than needing to push 700 buttons on cooldown, because they all have, you know, a half-second cooldown and everything's going to be, you know, up almost all at once. And then there's some that have, you know, so many different stages of timing, and they can desync and resync, and then you got to go crazy with all the stuff instead of just choosing what skill is appropriate and choosing the next one to follow up because it has like a combo to it, or, you know, someone next to you just added a couple stacks of some kind of detriment, and then yours can feed off of that and create a third impediment to them, like the whole showcase they did with the fighter and it was either the fighter or the tank and the cleric, when they were showing off the cleric first. And they're like, hey, check this out. We're going to put chains on them, which, you know, slows them down. And then this other one's going to stagger and they're going to knock them on their butt.
Yeah.
During that live stream, that was to me a really good defining moment of how the combat could feel amazing. And it can still be reactionary, but you need to choose your reactions a little bit more carefully instead of just, hey, whatever's up. And then you have your CC buttons that just wait for someone to come at you directly, and then you just use them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Before I give my thoughts, Raka says, it all depends on balancing, but I think it's not too fast. Grobe says, TTK is fine as is. My only actual complaint are cosmetic design choices. And I'm sure there's that to get polished eventually, of course. Nara says, I think it's super hard to tell yet. If you look at WoW Arena, they're just keep going for minutes before the first death while mashing all the buttons. But in other PvP in the game, sometimes you just see people melt for ashes. I hope that they take it somewhat slow. And I think that's the other point. And we'll get to this in just a moment, but I mean, they brought up the actual new dev discussion is on esports. And I have a few thoughts on this that I'll kind of elaborate more on later, but I think for an MMO, the TTK seems fine. It seems to be kind of what I expect. I mean, understandably so, if you get opened on the way that the person at the beginning gets opened on by all those rangers, they melted pretty quickly. So understandably so. Like, when you're not ready or not expecting to be ganked, you're gonna go down pretty quickly, kind of thing. So
that poor person.
Yeah. But I will say, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna laugh at just hearing Steven say that in the video. Okay, Rangers, focus on Neltharion. I forget. It was a similar name to that.
Yeah.
Yep, you got deleted.
Just immediate feels bad man moment.
Yeah, and with what Ashers of Nera was talking about with the WoW arenas, and that the way that they keep those going on so long is that they do implement a reduce in healing as the arena goes on longer, because otherwise they would go on forever if they didn't do that.
Yeah, because they also stack the bejeebus out of like PvP stats, like resilience, such like that,
right?
Which Ashes won't have. So
the thing I wanted to touch on before moving on to the next topic was that I didn't see too many people talking about the TTK being an issue. What I did see was a lot of people thinking that tab targeting was kind of retro for PvP, that it should be action focused. And I think that, as far as I'm aware, Intrepid's not deviating from being able to be hybrid from action and or tab. It's just the viewpoints that we see on screen seem to still be tab. So I don't know, maybe they're not ready to show action yet. But
yeah, I'm kind of super curious to see how all that pans out, because Steven said that there will be ways to choose your skills and increase which one is more effective for that skill. Maybe not every skill will have that, but some would. Curious to see how that's gonna work out, because it almost sounds like they want you to fluidly bounce between the two different styles as you're playing, instead of just sticking in one all the time.
I don't know if I could do that, to be honest. That's not my playstyle.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
the thing I like to say is whenever there's a new game, there's a chance to learn a new playstyle, because I usually play tab targeted games, and then here I am playing Overwatch. So
I mean, and that's that's the fun thing about talking about stuff and going over it and theorizing and experimenting before you really have a chance to get your hands on it. Very well could be like the fact that when I first picked up a Naga mouse, absolutely hated it, could not get used to it, it bothered me. And after like 2 months now, I'm about to go buy 12 of them and keep them in my closet in case Razor stops making them. I'll at least have backups.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, you have to. I think I had one of those, but then I swapped to Logitech. So same 12 buttons though.
Yeah. So I mean, until I can get my hands on something, I'll always have an opinion on it and say I don't think that, or I think that whatever. And maybe it'll change my mind. So I always keep myself open to try it.
So this is another post on Reddit from, I'm gonna butcher this person's name, Garzavog. There we go. We'll just go with that one. For the economic warfare thoughts, after the caravan update, they started getting really excited about the idea of hobbling mayors and castles before a siege. Lots of taxes and resources move around the map from system-generated caravans, and attacking them over the course of weeks or months could really soften up a target and limit their support from a larger population of their nodes. While the core of the large guilds are usually very stable, the rest are mostly fair weather friends. What other ways would you guys be able to think of to attack nodes without direct siege or warfare besides just taking out their caravans and kind of picking off their supplies coming in one by one? And this was kind of an interesting idea that I wanted to talk about as well. but also, real quick, Nair says, Steven also said that they'll go full tab if they can't get a good balance or feeling for action. Raka says, I would also like to see bullet drop or arrow drop, so to speak, where you have to aim higher the further away the target. That's not a bad idea. Because again, if you're gonna try to snipe off some of these caravans, right, and you're from a good distance away, if the camouflage is working the way that Steven intended it, where the further away you are, the more invisible you are, you're gonna need to think about that, especially when trying to ambush a caravan.
Yep, sure.
So what other ways could you see doing some sort of economic warfare?
Yeah, I would, besides attacking caravans, yeah, you would just... The espionage angle that Steven likes to mention, you know, maybe you start putting other friends inside other citizenships, figuring out how to take advantage of, you know, whatever situations. Maybe start doing some propaganda, you know, all that kind of stuff. You could try and entice citizens also to come to whatever node you want to be the one to grow via saying, hey, we have this building and they don't, or we have this upgrade and they don't. That could, you know, help you out as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's so many fun things you could do with the economy and committing some acts of war in ways that they might even realize are acts of war. Even for that matter, going and if you are, say, the example that came up during the discussion round talks about PvP and caravans and who has the biggest risk and et cetera, was that, well, maybe if there's two nodes right next to each other, right? They're literal neighbors. They're both level 5. There isn't a metro in the zone of influence yet at all. So now they're both vying for, you know, that metro status. They are absolutely going to be trying to sabotage each other. And they're right next door. You could literally just be trying to hunt down certain things for a quest or for experience or whatnot, and where you choose to do your hunting is going to make a big difference. And where you choose to sell those things, and then where you choose to buy everything on your way back or what have you, is going to have a huge impact on something like that. But
yeah.
Question is, in a situation like that, do you go and hunt down everything that's in your opponent's node because you don't want them to be able to like turn in quest rewards and stuff like that? Or do you not do that because the node's going to gain experience off of it?
Right. A good question.
There's
some stuff
so
from
many
the community. Ramiro says propaganda leaflet drop. We are coming for your node, evacuate while you can, kind of thing. Nemesis says economic warfare. After hearing Steven said that will be a thing, I really got excited for that aspect, since there are other ways to bring down a node than just raw attrition. Nara says economic warfare better be important or meaningful in Ashes. It's a huge aspect of making the whole node system interesting, and I agree with that. Ramiro says sell poisoned rations in town, poison the water supply or livestock. Those poor people. Nemesis says we can literally disrupt trade and logistics, which I have never experienced in multiplayer games, rather than kill X amount of people faster than the other before the time runs out. And then Ramiro offers the idea of driving mobs into town. And Nemesis says Vlada said this in this front. This is literally Game of Thrones, the MMO.
Yeah.
Nair says, and doubled agents, I think the spying on same account will be hard. Shared housing and such will give you away. I think successful spies will have 2 accounts or PCs. Pocket says, imagine utilizing caravans to overinflate certain items in someone else's market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say
I like the idea of
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going wrong. All right, speak. There we go. I was going to go along with using a caravan, and you just send poisoned food or poisoned
Yeah.
product.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they'd make that work. That's why I got a buddy who's, I mean, on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. His name is Econ PvP is life, and I think this is the type of situation he would absolutely thrive at. Just finding the best ways to profit while also making sure other nodes cannot profit anywhere near as much.
Yeah. And I think also that choosing to wait until something is trying to sell for a high price so that they can try and get money, because I imagine what would I do if I knew that stuff was going to, I think in a way they might sabotage themselves or try to do an every man for themselves in preparation for leaving the node, and either dump a bunch of resources into their own markets, thus driving the costs down and making it freed up, but trying to get whatever coin they can out of it, or moving all of their stuff to a whole other node and hoping they don't get attacked on the way out, which could also open themselves up for being kind of like at an economic loss at that point, because somebody could come in since they know that they're trying to siege them, take out their caravans, not even just the systematic ones that OP is suggesting, but also character created ones, so that they can, kind of hit them where they're like when they're down, almost in a way. Like, we know you're trying to escape with like your goods, so let's try to get as many of your goods as we can where you can escape, kind of thing.
No.
Which brings us to the next topic of
I got one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
That's another like strategy too that players with nodes can use, that I think guilds will use, like how a node it will be protected for 3 weeks after leveling up. So you might decide, hey, we're not going to level it to this next stage until closer to the 3 week mark, and then keep themselves protected for a while from the sieges.
Yeah.
But you could also use it as a way of warfare by, the guild doesn't contribute any more XP, and then you could just be some other group who comes in and then levels it up before they wanted to.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really tricky for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Narer posted on the forums about in-game rewards for caravan attackers needing to be hashed out. And so that's kind of the direction I was taking it, which was like, let's say you are trying to move your goods from one node to another and somebody comes to attack you, right? In a risk versus reward game system, we need to have have tangible measurable risk to get tangible measurable reward. And basically, there's the current conversation of like, not really the current conversation of the script made by Zillin of me hiring Virtek to help me, and then Virtek basically backstabs me and takes my stuff. But then he's doing social and political risk or dislike between myself and him and the node and stuff like that. So like that's something else to consider as well, is like you're risking your social standing, you're risking a few other things with like attacking in terms of you're putting your name out there like, oh, this person attacked my caravan and has attacked a couple of our caravans. So then if Virtek were to be that person and were to try to make his own caravan, people would especially be on the lookout for that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But Nair, if you have a TLDR that you would like to share of your post here, would love to kind of have that in text, especially for the people on YouTube. But
basically saying, sorry, go ahead.
In this example, he was saying, let's remove the defenders completely from the discussion, because for this example, let's say the defenders are NPCs, right? That way, and hashtag NPC lives don't matter. So, you know, it's not about the defenders taking all the risk to put, you know, a caravan together and all their hard-earned stuff. This is just a systematic caravan. Then what does the attacker get out of this, essentially? And Nair says, one of my points with that post is that the social political risk is a self-contained gameplay loop that and can't be accounted for in the end-game risk and reward system. So with that, go ahead, take the floor.
Oh yeah, it was like basically saying that once the attackers have attacked, he wants the loot to be distributed out. And yeah, it's interesting depending on how many people you have. Is, you know, you got to have, like you said, an agreement upon before, like, hey, this guy's going to grab all of it, or we're not going to grab any of it, we'll just keep it in there and send our new caravan. But yeah, it's a social aspect instead of like being like, hey, everybody gets one portion of it, you know. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be the fun part, which I mean, I suppose as an unorganized attacker group, that would be one risk you're taking, is do you even get any loot, or is everyone else going to crack the cases and run away before you get a chance to even ask, hey, so who's going to summon the caravan? Wait, where'd you go? And all the stuff's gone. But yeah, Nara, that's actually one thing with the social system that I was suggesting on the discussion round when we were talking about attacker versus defender and risk. Attackers not really having risk, or like a buy-in cost, kind of, as you were saying, and making it so that when you flag up as an attacker and you throw an attack in there, or you join in the fray, when someone in the group throws an attack, everyone in there is flagged as an attacker, and it actually gets distributed around to the node within which you sprung the attack, the originating node that the caravan was coming from, and all allied nodes, including like the entire ZOI if it came from a metro. They would get a little a registry of highwaymen that launched attacks and how many were successful, and potentially even the sale value of the goods in the node it started in, that type of thing.
Which, by the way, if you guys have not seen that, please go check it out over here. This is from about a day or so ago. I believe it was on Sunday. Or Saturday. Saturday. It was posted a day ago. So flagged for PvP is this episode, and Virtek was on it, and they were having PvP and PvE conversations. So check it out.
It was a good conversation. It started to get in the weeds a little bit towards the end, but it was a good conversation either way. I was enjoying listening more than talking towards the end. Just watching the interplay between the folks.
Yeah. For me, I think that if it's systematic, I could probably see there being probably the death penalty involved versus character or player curated. But then also, I don't know. That's a good question. It's hard to say. I haven't seen it super fleshed out, so it's like in my mind I have like an idea of what I want to say, but it's like the other part of me, because I like to overthink things, right? So the other part of me is like, but what if it's not like that when you go to play it? But Nara says, really the main point of my post is that I'm not sure if Intrepid has even really considered what the rewards for the attackers should be, ignoring the risk reward for the defenders. Yeah. Because I feel like Virtek has said this multiple times. Other people, I don't know, Brian, if you agree with us on this, but people have said that the attackers have zero risk associated with attacking. They didn't put in anything really except for the effort to attack, and they reap a decent benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the first thought I had when I watched the live stream. I was like, oh, and yeah, it's. I agree that there should be some kind of cost there of, okay, whatever that might be, you know. But it's definitely, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Because one point that came up that, to be honest, I hadn't thought of before that conversation on discussion round was that perhaps it's defenders that didn't have enough incentive to volunteer to defend. Because they're kind of like, what do you get for defending? Well, a thank you? Because it's not like the attackers would at least get the benefit or the reward of, you know, taking all the stolen goods and selling them and making the money. The originator of the caravan would get all the money if of a successfully run caravan. But they also haven't announced if that's definitely the case for defenders or if that's just currently the assumption because nothing else has been announced or spoken about for, you know, defender rewards outside of the highwayman system and defending caravans and the defending side of the highwayman system. But if there was some kind of an incentive for defenders to also just jump in, then at that point, I suppose it would tend to balance out the sides a little bit better because defenders would say, ah, cool, you know, the node is going to give me like 5 gold just to run along and fight alongside the caravan.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that, Nara. We do need to know a lot more about it. And there's something similar to the highwayman system, the defenders. Grip says DA mentioned that there are caravan abilities that weren't used in the stream. I don't know necessarily about that. But like the cost of attacking a caravan is gathering enough people to do it successfully because it doesn't look like a small scale activity. Potentially, yeah.
Well, yeah, in the original caravan, I guess preview, you could say, where they're just kind of showing a little bit about it. They did have the caravan do a pushback and a heal, which they didn't use either of those in this caravan PvP showcase.
Yeah, a good point. I kind of forgot about those. Caravan abilities being the healing AoE and the knockback. Yeah. Korean kind of agree. Chibi, don't see the repulsor wave as the heal. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot to be considered with that, and I think, if I had to guess, the main reason why they probably didn't do that is because that wasn't the focal point. They had the caravan system for the abilities, and now it's focusing on, look at it turning into a boat. And turning back into a caravan.
Watch it burn.
You know, things like that. But I think, yeah, if you consider all of the systems together, you know, there's a lot there and a lot of potential. And the caravan probably could have gone very differently. I won't know. We won't know until we're in the, you know, alpha 2.